Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara and today we're going to be going over the root chakra, also known as root chakra or Muladhara in Sanskrit. So the chakra system overall, we have 7 chakras within the body. As far as we know, we have many more. Okay, some people say up to thousands. So the chakra system actually originates from originally the furthest back they were able to find it is in the Vedas. So these are ancient Indian texts, and interestingly enough, somebody once told me that we're actually not supposed to be saying the A at the end of the words, that in Sanskrit they actually don't pronounce the A. So it'd be really nice if somebody out there who stumbles upon this video actually knows. You guys can validate in the comments if that is correct. I've heard that anything that ends with A, so yoga, karma, dharma, all these words that actually they're not supposed to have the A in Sanskrit. I personally don't know Sanskrit, but this is something that somebody once told me. I do know that I have heard about this in yoga. So when we talk about Shavasana, the pose, I have heard that it's actually supposed to be Shavasana. So let me know if anybody stumbles upon this video. I am by no means at all saying that I know everything about chakras at all. This video is just merely to bring attention to them and also just tell you guys things that I have noticed, learned, and observed along my own journey. So as usual, you guys can take what resonates, leave behind what does not. I do truly believe that the more information that we know, the easier it is for us to start connecting the dots and putting pieces together of really what is happening here on this earth plane. And what's really important is always discernment. So anytime in general, any information you guys learn, you have to really sit with it and see whether it resonates with you in your soul essence, in your heart frequency. Don't ever take any information that someone just says and take that as gospel. Always sit with it, think about it, dwell on it. Does it resonate? Why is it like this? Why is it this way? What are the reasons for this? And then you guys can eventually come to your own conclusions. So overall on my channel here and there, anytime I am making any reference points, I do mention the chakras a lot. For me personally, they are a point of reference. So especially when we are looking at psychic information, and if you guys want to look at it as channeling or whatever term you guys want to learn, when we're learning things and trying to maybe discover more and figure out more, it's an easy reference point when you can kind of hone the energy in on something. So when we know more information, it's easy to hone the energy in on that thing. Then you guys can see if you guys are clairsentient, for example. I myself am clairsentient. So the way that I always do things is I always think about it and I'm like, how does this feel within my body? Where am I feeling this? With chakras, for example, I'm always able to feel it, let's say within my own body, let's say something that might be going on within another person's body, and then I can pinpoint it and then I know what the chakra means. And then through that, I can go even further and further to see what might be going on with this person energetically. A lot of the time, we're going to see mentions of chakras, especially in yoga, okay, because a lot of the yoga poses are meant to either activate or clear certain chakras. So it's really interesting, especially in the West, to see how yoga has become such a physical practice. It's really interesting to see overall how a lot of these spiritual beliefs and practices have become very materialized is the word. Physical interpretation of something that is spiritual. So in terms of yoga, it's become very much about exercise and focusing only on the exercise aspect of it. But really the whole point of yoga and the poses with yoga is to basically clear your chakras, get in alignment with your chakras, see what's going on with each of the chakras within your body. So if you guys do start to practice yoga, and especially the slower kind of yoga, so hatha yoga, especially if you're a beginner, that's another ego thing that I've noticed is that when people start out with yoga, they right away want to go to the fast one or the more advanced one, and they don't really take the mindfulness aspect of it. They don't take in the whole aspect of what is happening when I'm in this pose? How did I get into this pose? Where am I balanced maybe compared to before? Let's say you guys have been going to maybe several yoga classes, maybe there's a specific pose that you guys can't get into. It's going to probably be very closely tied to one of the chakras in your system. So if you have something going on with one of your chakras and resistance within the body, this is always going to manifest in the physical sense, okay? So this is for everything as well. Anytime anything is going on with an individual, and I'm not a health practitioner in any way, shape, or form, so that's my disclaimer there. But usually the way that I look at things is, okay, what is happening with this person? What is the issue? Where is it within their body? Okay, what chakra is in that particular area? Okay, what emotion is connected to that particular chakra? Now we're getting deeper and deeper to see what is going on. And that is how we get a little bit more information to see what is going on within the person. I am almost convinced entirely, I will always leave room in there because you never know, things could always change, but I am almost convinced entirely that if you were to be able to get down to the root, interesting we're talking about the root chakra today, but if you were to be able to get down to the root of the problem, what is the emotion behind it, heal that issue, whatever is going on, maybe it's a trauma, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a belief system, maybe it is a limiting belief, whatever it is, if you're able to heal it and then reprogram yourself, then you will be able to maybe heal the physical aspect or the physical manifestation solution of whatever that particular issue was. So personally, I always see things through this particular perspective. I'm sure you guys have noticed if you've been on the channel for a while that I always reference these chakras, because for me, it's a form of divination as well. I always zero in on that energy, what is going on with which particular chakra, and it helps me basically hone the energy on one thing. They talk about that in yoga as well. It's called the drishti, the gaze. So this helps you get into a meditative state. So different people have different forms of meditation. For me, it really is through information. So I'm able to hone in on whatever that particular thing is through the information that I have learned. So sometimes when we have certain names or things that we can kind of focus the attention on, then it's easier to hone the energy in on that thing and maybe explore and learn more about it. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power. So the more you know, the more you know. So that is my intro in terms of what chakras are. And also, I'm sure that some of you guys, if you're in this entire world, maybe you've either been exposed to Reiki or you know about Reiki. So if you know about Reiki, well, that is also another place where they kind of focus on the chakras. And overall, I have seen this even in like a sciencey realm. Like I have met some people who have certain types of like electromagnetic machines, and through their machines, they're kind of focusing in on the chakras. Now, through time, different chakras have maybe different names and terminologies. I will just share with you guys the way that I have learned through the 7 chakras. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. When we look at the root chakra, it is located at the base of the spine. It is represented by the color red. The root chakra, if you look at it, it is going to be, in terms of the color red, the way that I always saw it was it is the widest band in terms of the rainbow. So it's going to be the longest band, the widest band. So sometimes the way that I see this particular chakra, because of this reason, is that when it's triggered and you are pulled into your root chakra, it takes a while to get out of it. It affects you more. And when you look at the collective, we have specific collective wounds. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard, if you've been on the channel for a while, I do mention a lot of these collective wounds often, time and time again. Now, once again, these are just the ways that I have compartmentalized these wounds. I am not saying that it's because of this, it's just the way that I personally have compartmentalized the information. So in terms of the root chakra, it is located at the base of the spine. It's going to affect your legs, it's going to affect your feet and your ankles. It'll also affect your bowels. So it's really interesting because it's like every chakra has an emotion that is connected to, and it also has an element that is connected to that particular chakra. So for the root chakra, it's going to be connected to the feeling of safety, security. It's also connected to the feeling of anger. This is the negative emotion behind here. And it can also be connected to the feeling of fear as well, and anxiety. But sometimes I do notice, it depends really, but sometimes I notice that fear more so manifests in the solar plexus chakra. So traditionally, the emotion behind here is going to be anger. It's going to be anything to do with survival. So anything to do with our primal instincts is going to be connected to the root chakra. So fear of being like the prey, anything that is really like animalistic and really part of like that beast part of the human is connected to the root chakra. Anything to do with like the whole concept of prey versus predator, anything to do with the fear of death. This is a big one. Although it's interesting though, even though the root chakra can represent the fear of death, I can also see the fear of death being connected to the solar plexus chakra. We're going to have to get to that particular chakra to get into that a little bit more, but overall, this is the root chakra from my findings. Survival overall in terms of food, safety, security, shelter is all in the root chakra. Money, of course, because in the current reality that we are living in, money does represent security and safety. So for example, if you guys are struggling with money, or you're having money problems, or you're having money issues, you would have to explore your root chakra to see what is going on. So sometimes this can manifest as lower back problems, for example, although the lower back can sometimes also be sacral, but most of the time I have found that lower back issues are connected to the root chakra. Maybe not feeling quote unquote supported throughout your life, maybe feeling like you have a lot of burdens on your back. This is the overall vibe of the root chakra. Maybe feeling like you have to go through life on your own, doing things on your own. This is all very much connected to the root chakra. So sometimes when I talk about things, let's say someone is going through financial problems, especially as a collective, this has been a theme in this last year specifically. So basically what takes place is when that chakra is quote unquote triggered or affected, you get pulled down. Okay, you get pulled down into the root chakra. And unfortunately, this is all done by design. I'm gonna have to talk in code here, but it is done by design because when people's root chakras are triggered, you're pulled into that survival instinct, that animalistic part of the self, that primal instinct to survive, to get food, to get money, to get all these types of things that we correlate with our survival in the current day and time that we are living in. So what happens is like when people are too much in their root chakra, when you're in the shadow of the root chakra, you might go into materialism. You might be overly materialistic. You might not have the time, for example, which is also done by design because we are trading our time and energy for money, which is the biggest thing here, right? When we look at what's happening down here. Because of this, then you're maybe not able to go into your crown chakra. You're maybe not able to go into the spirituality aspects of life and to to connect in that particular way. Once again, done by design, talking in code here. So I hope you guys are able to read between the lines. So this is something that I personally have observed. I'm not saying this is a rule of thumb, but what happens is when people are pulled into their root, I've noticed that the root chakra and the crown chakra are connected. So it's like when you're pulled into the root, you can't go into the crown, but also vice versa. If you're in the crown too much, well, then you might struggle with the root aspect of life in terms of maybe not caring about money and maybe not caring about these things and maybe completely disconnecting from the material and physical plane. Because at the end of the day, what we really want to do is we want to have a balance. We really want to be balanced as much as we can. We basically want to be operating out of the heart space, not so much out of those lower chakra wounds, and the root chakra is a big one. Now, the lower subconscious is also in the root chakra. So what's really interesting is maybe throughout your lives, you guys have noticed that maybe if you guys get really nervous for something, or maybe you guys get like really startled or like scared in a particular moment, maybe there's something like intense that happens and like really shakes you guys are going to notice that you guys might have to go to the bathroom right away. This is why root chakra is connected to the bowels as well. So this is actually another survival instinct. Now, I can't remember where I heard this, whether they were talking about animals or humans, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because that's where we do come from originally, if you think about it. But regardless, it's like basically what this individual was talking about was like when the animal gets scared, or maybe you as a human get scared at that particular moment, you might have to go to the bathroom right away, or like for animals, it might kind of happen without them thinking, because what's actually happening here is like you are quote unquote becoming lighter so you can run away from the predator. So that's what that root chakra is all about. And this is why the root chakra is really important to heal for many reasons, because it's like when you're trapped in the root chakra, you're really pulled down. You're pulled down into those primal instincts. Maybe some people might even call it the reptilian brain. Whatever term you want to use, you're kind of being pulled down, where it's kind of like as a species, in a way, we have evolved, but we also haven't really evolved. If we think about spiritually, we haven't really evolved. We've definitely had civilizations that were way more spiritual than we currently are. So we're kind of trying to come back to that. So currently, in the way that the times currently are, and we are thankfully coming out of this, but up until this point, we are at peak materialism, okay? It's very much a materialistic plane, not just materialistic in a sense where it's like, I want to have a lot of stuff and I want to have a lot of items. That is part of it, but it's also peak materialism where it's like there's this huge disconnect between the spirit and the soul and the spirituality aspect of life and these types of things, where it's like people are really ingrained in the physical reality and climbing to higher heights and social status. Now, because also the root chakra does deal with the lower subconscious, what I've seen also with the root chakra is that all the generational things are going to be stored in the root chakra as well. So anything that is ancestral, anything that is generational, obviously if it is a different emotion, maybe it's going to pertain to a different chakra, but overall that heavy shadow aspect of society, those heavy like intense darkness is really what that is, that maybe hasn't been transmuted within like a family line or within society overall in general, is also stored in the root chakra. So it's a lot of like energetic junk, I guess you can say, and a lot of these things could, let's say, be holding you back from maybe going into those higher realms, into the spiritual aspect of things, and having maybe that balance. So another thing that I used to talk about, especially with the root chakra, back in the day, I actually used to teach a course called Open Your Chakras. It was in person, and then eventually I moved it online, and then eventually I took it off the courses that I had. So now the information is basically going to be available to you guys. But the overall idea with the root chakra is you have to look at it like a tree. So with a tree, 2/3 of the tree are in the roots. The majority of the tree, and we have this lovely plant here. Okay, that's been my day one. So the majority of the tree, or the plant, but we'll look at it as a tree, the majority of the tree is in the roots. So everything is happening underground. Everything is happening in the dark. It's like the underworld. It's like the dark, again, subconscious. It's all these things that also maybe a lot of people do fear. Maybe they avoid, maybe they don't want to look at these things. But we also have to look at like everything that is birthed in this plane does originally come from maybe some form of underground darkness, a baby, a plant, the tree being born. So there is a lot of knowledge in the darkness, okay, in the shadows, in the dark. But it's interesting because it's like, it's another part of the programming. Even when we look at like kids or like TV shows, it's like kids might be afraid of the dark, or it's like there's a programming aspect of it where it's like only like negative things happen in the dark. So it's interesting to see, right? Because it's like when we actually look at darkness, the depths of everything is happening beneath the surface. For a tree to be like big and strong, once again, the majority of the roots are underground. This is the whole thing to understand, even in terms of like the birthing process as well. We can kind of correlate it to this for anything that you want to bring through and manifest into this life. It's all all happening behind the scenes. It's all happening in the darkness. You really, really have to get in tune with your shadows, the darkness and the dark aspects of life, because that is kind of like where the riches are low-key happening behind the scenes. You want to be able to clear them, not fear them. And then when we clear something and we heal something within ourselves, you actually clear it for the whole line. And then it's as if it never happened. I know that might be a little bit counterintuitive. It's a little bit more on the metaphysical side. Maybe a different day I will explain it and how that works. I'm just not going to go too much into the crown chakra in this particular video. We are talking about the root chakra after all. So this is the overall vibe. We want to master these wounds. We want to master the collective wounds, and we want to be aware of them. Same thing with the fear of death. That is one of the biggest collective wounds. And if we look at the way events played out maybe since 2020, talking in code here, you'll see how big this fear is. And then you'll see that when people are triggered into these fears, how easy they are to control. And this could be like, whether it's on a mass scale or it's in your day-to-day, you'll notice even like in narcissistic dynamics or people who maybe have entity attachments to them, you'll be able to pick up on a wound, and that wound will be targeted, and in a way you'll be able to be controlled because of the wound that you have. This is why you want to master the wounds. You don't want to wallow in it either. It's just awareness is really all that it is at the end of the day. So the root chakra really is connected with being grounded maybe in the physical plane and the physical reality. You'll notice that maybe when people don't have a strong root chakra, they might be kind of clumsy or like bumping into things all the time, or they're like off in space, like literally like in their crown. So that's another way that you'll be able to tell that someone is maybe not in their root chakra, or the root chakra is imbalanced, is like when you're tripping on things, bumping into things, not really paying attention, kind of like in a different dimension. But definitely the money wound is a big one, especially in this collective, especially because you need the money kind of like tokens to kind of survive in this current reality that we're in. So it's like when you're healing the root chakra, you'd have to really boil down to what are my belief systems around money? Where does it come from? And also something else that I didn't mention is that the root chakra is actually connected to the father. So it's like, again, looking through all of these connections. So it's like when the root chakra is connected to the father, and then you're looking at your belief systems around money, for example, well then in that particular case, you would have to look at the father and see what were his belief systems around money that maybe you have internalized. Or it could really be anything that is connected with safety and security, maybe not having a safe home when you were growing up, or maybe you moved around a lot, so maybe you weren't like grounded in one place. And it's interesting because it's like, again, if we look at the analogy of a tree growing, it's like you'll see sometimes when you're grounded in one place, you'll start to see things bloom, you'll start to see things blossom. So once again, it really is done by design, the way that this current reality that we're in is, okay? Because a lot of people are in the root chakra, or they're triggered in the root chakra, or like, even if you're not triggered in the root chakra, like there could just be ancestral like remnants of it there, or maybe like past life things. So when we're looking at like past life and like really starting to explore, is it a past life or is it like a thing that happened in a past life? You'll only look at that if it isn't something that happened in this current reality, okay? So keep that in mind. So what you guys wanna do when you're healing or like exploring all these things, like these belief systems, you first want to look to see what is happening in the line. Always the original two caregivers, and then you can kind of go up the line. If you're not able to find your answer there, only then turn to past life stuff. I know that these days it's really exciting to talk about past lives and these types of things, but sometimes it's like, sometimes the issue is from the current lifetime. And if you can't find your answer there, then start to go into the past life and past lives, and maybe what may have been carried over from a past life into this current lifetime and into this current reality. But that is the overall idea with the root chakra. One of the biggest collective wounds on this earth plane. When we have a wound, we're easy to control, so we want to master that particular wound, but we don't want to focus on it overly either. You just kind of want to figure out how to reprogram yourself, and obviously that's going to take time, effort, and energy, but it really is worth it when you're on the other side of it. When you're going through it, it is going to take a lot. And another thing that I've recently discovered online, just from like people's stories, is that a lot of people talk about having IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and I would love to interview these people to basically ask them about their lives, because I am convinced that that particular condition comes from some form of not feeling safe and not feeling secure when you were growing up. So not feeling safe and not feeling secure, sometimes it's just a feeling. Sometimes the overall vibe in the house was maybe on edge, or maybe dysfunctional in one way, shape, or form. It could be the money thing that I talked about. Maybe the home was constantly moved around and changed. Maybe there was nothing that was like obvious in the environment, but maybe you picked up on a vibe. Maybe you internalized somebody else's vibe. So it could be things like this, okay? So this is kind of how we want to get those wheels rolling, because everything originally manifests in the energetic spiritual plane. It starts there in the energetic plane, comes through as a thought. The more you think about that thought, you add energy to it. Energy in motion is emotion. You have now created an emotional thing going on, whether it's good or bad. It is being stored within your body, and then boom, it hits the physical reality. So it's important to understand that by the time it hits the physical reality, it has already gone through all of these previous stages already. So it's like we have to work backwards when something has already hit the physical plane and the physical reality. And this is for a lot of different circumstances and situations. situations, and most things really are out of your control, because once again, a lot of things come back down to programming. And this is why astrology is amazing, because it will help us figure out what quote unquote code we incarnated into in this lifetime, so we can break free from that particular code. Me talking in a code as well a little bit here, so I hope you guys are able to catch my drift. And with all that being said, I will wrap up this video here on the root chakra. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.